We just saw this example test in the previous video. The get method here makes a get request into the application, and the assert status method asserts that the return response should have the given HTTP status code. We can also make a post, put, patch, or a delete request similarly. We can set session data, customize request headers, and use assertions to inspect the response headers, JSON structure, and more. Now let's test some of the instructor features of our app using HTTP tests. First, create a new test class using sale artisan make test, and let's call this instructor test. Okay, there has to be a test suffix. Open this file. Let's first test if the instructor is being redirected correctly to the instructor dashboard. Remove this. Public function, let's call it test instructor is redirected to instructor dashboard. To instructor dashboard. Yes, these methods will be long, as in the names will be long because we want it to be as descriptive as possible. Now to check if an instructor is being redirected correctly, we first need to create an instructor, right? So we can use the user factory and create an instructor. User factory create. And we just have to say role as instructor because remember the default role is member instructor. And now that we have the required setup, we can say response equals this get dashboard, right? So we are trying to get the dashboard route. This is what we are doing, and now we want this to redirect to instructor/dashboard. But this route requires authentication, so we need to sign in as this user before accessing the route, and this can be done using acting as method. And then you have to pass the user access this dashboard link logged in as this user. That's what this means. Now we need to assert that a redirection happens to the instructor's dashboard. So say response. You can use the method assert redirect, or you can say assert redirect to route. So you can pass the route name itself. Instructor again dot dashboard. Okay. And before I forget, let me import the user model. Otherwise the test itself will fail. Okay. Now let's see if this test passes. Let's say sale artisan test, and I only want to check if this instructor test suite is passing. Alright, this is a pass. Instructor is redirected to the instructor dashboard. Note that it says two assertions, though we've used only one assert method, which is assert redirect to route. But it says two because this assertion itself has two assertions. First, it checks if the request returned a redirect code, and second, to see if the ending location is correct. Now let's take it a step further. We tested that a redirect is happening to this URL. Now we can actually follow the redirect by saying this follow redirects, pass the response here, and then assert something here. Like say assert C. Let's assert that we see a text hey instructor, because this is what is displayed in the dashboard. Alright, let's test this. Run the same thing. This is also a pass. We have three assertions now. Now let's write another test to see if an instructor is able to schedule a class. So for that, let's write a method public function test instructor can schedule a class. Okay. Same thing, we have to once again create an instructor first. And let's try to post to the store URL as an instructor. So response equals this post to the URL, the store URL, which is instructor/schedule. And we need to pass the request array as an argument here. So we can set a class type ID as 1. And then we can set the date. We have to set the date and time separately because that's how the request is received. 2023-04-20. And then time, just some time, like maybe 9 o'clock. Alright. So if this works fine, we should be redirected to the upcoming classes route. So let's test that. Let's assert response, assert redirect. Again, we can say redirect to route. And pass in the name of the route, which is schedule.index. Okay. This should be it. Let's run only this test now. So let me just copy a test instructor can schedule a class. Sale artisan test filter and type this. And it fails. We were supposed to hit the post route, but we get the login route. That's because we failed to log in as a user. So this acting as user is what we need to do. Let's now see if this is a pass. Try again. But this is also a fail. We get a very huge error response, but the summary is that cannot add or update a child row, foreign key constraint fails. That's because we don't have any data in the class types table, right? We seed that and we haven't seeded anything into this testing database. We have the table, but we don't have the seed, and we're using class type ID as one, so obviously it fails. Now here, you can also seed the class type data and then test this. So let's say this seed class type seeder. You can pass the class type seeder here, so that way we have 4 different classes. And here, we can change this to class type first ID. So in case it uses a different ID than 1 for some reason, it doesn't fail again. Alright, we have to say class for this to work, and let's import this. Yeah, the class is already imported. Now let's try and run this. Use the command. Finally, it passes. So you can write similar tests for all the get, post, and delete requests related to scheduling classes, booking classes, and so on, and assert the responses. But before we conclude, I want you to observe a pattern every single test follows. The first thing we do is we set up the environment. This could be creating the model, seeding the tables, or something else. Then we take an action. Finally, we make assertions. You can remember this as given, that is given this scenario, when this happens, then this should happen. So every single test case follow this particular pattern. So if you're stuck anytime, you know how to write your test cases by following given, when, then pattern. Now go ahead and write some tests on your own.